Special Operation Hungary, Sonderachsenangang. 105. In May 1944, Auschwitz-Birkenau became the site of one of the two largest mass murder operations in modern history, after the Grossachsen War showed deportations of the Warsaw Ghetto inmates to Treblinka in 1942. It is estimated that until July, 16,000 French Jews declared stateless. Factors that were overlooked earlier, such as personal initiative and ingenuity of countless functionaries in charge of the killing. We were faced with the question, what about the women and children? I have decided on a solution to this problem. I did not consider myself justified to exterminate the men only in other words, to kill them or have them killed while allowing the avengers, in the form of their children, to grow up in the midst of our sons and grandsons. The difficult decision had to be made to have this people disappear from the earth. Heinrich Himmler, the 6th of October 1943, 96, on the 19th of October 1943, 5 days after the prisoner revolt in Sobibor, Operation Reinhard was terminated by Odilo Globoknik on behalf of Himmler. The camps responsible for the murder of nearly 2,700,000 Jews were soon closed. Belzec, Sobibor, and Treblinka were dismantled and plowed over before spring. 97. The operation was followed by the single largest German massacre of Jews in the entire war carried out on 3 November 1943, with approximately 43,000 prisoners shot one by one simultaneously in 3 nearby locations by the Reserve Police Battalion 101 hand in hand with the Trawnicki men from Ukraine. 98. Auschwitz alone had enough capacity to fulfill the Nazis' remaining extermination needs. 82. Auschwitz II Birkenau. Unlike Belzec, Sobibor, Treblinka, and Lublin-Majdanek, 99, which were built in the occupied general government territory inhabited by the largest concentrations of Jews, 100. The killing center at Auschwitz subcamp of Birkenau operated in Polish areas annexed by Nazi Germany directly. The new gas chambers at Bunker I were finished around March 1942 when the final solution was officially launched at Belzec. Until mid-June, 20,000 Silesian Jews were murdered there using Zyklon B. In July 1942, Bunker II became operational. In August, another 13,000 Polish Jews from Silesia were murdered, 101, along with 16,000 French Jews declared stateless, 102, and 7,700 Jews from Slovakia. 101. The infamous Gate of Death at Auschwitz II for the incoming freight trains was built of brick and cement mortar in 1943, and the 3-track rail spur was added. 103. Until mid-August, 45,000 Thessaloniki Jews were murdered in a mere 6 months, 102, including over 30,000 Jews from Sosnowiec, and Benzin ghettos. 104. The spring of 1944 marked the beginning of the last phase of the final solution at Birkenau. The new big ramps and sidings were constructed, and 2 freight elevators were installed inside crematoria 2 and 3 for moving the bodies faster. The size of the Sonderkommando was nearly quadrupled in preparation for the Special Operation Hungary, Sonderachsenangang. 105. In May 1944, Auschwitz-Birkenau became the site of one of the 2 largest mass murder operations in modern history, after the Grossachsen War showed deportations of the Warsaw Ghetto inmates to Treblinka in 1942. It is estimated that until July 1944 approximately 320,000 Hungarian Jews were gassed at Birkenau in less than 8 weeks. 103. The entire operation was photographed by the SS. 106. In total, between April and November 1944, Auschwitz II received over 585,000 Jews from over a dozen regions as far as Greece, Italy, and France, including 426,000 Jews from Hungary, 67,000 from Lodz, 25,000 from Theresienstadt, and the last 23,000 Jews from the general government. 107. Auschwitz was liberated by the Red Army on 27 January 1945, when the gassing had already stopped. 108. Historiographic debate about the decision. Historians disagree as to when and how the Nazi leadership decided that the European Jews should be terminated. The controversy is commonly described as the functionalism versus intentionalism debate. It began in the 1960s, and subsided 30 years later. In the 1990s, the attention of mainstream historians moved away from the question of top executive orders triggering the Holocaust and focused on factors that were overlooked earlier, such as personal initiative and ingenuity of countless functionaries in charge of the killing fields. No written evidence of Hitler ordering the final solution has ever been found to serve as a smoking gun, and therefore, this one particular question remains unanswered. 109. Hitler made numerous predictions regarding the Holocaust of the Jews of Europe prior to the beginning of World War II. During a speech given on the 30th of January, 1939, on the 6th anniversary of his accession to power, Hitler said, "Today I will once more be a prophet. If the international Jewish financiers in and outside Europe should succeed in plunging the nations once more into a world war, then the result will not be the Bolshevization of the earth, and thus the victory of Jewry, but the annihilation of the Jewish race in Europe." Adolf Hitler, 1939, 110. Raoul Hilberg, in his book The Destruction of the European Jews, was the first historian to systematically document and analyze the Nazi project to murder every Jew in Europe. The book was initially published in 1961, and issued in an enlarged version in 1985. 111. Hilberg's analysis of the steps that led to the destruction of European Jews revealed that it was an administrative process carried out by bureaucrats in a network of offices spanning a continent. 112. Hilberg divides this bureaucracy into 4 components or hierarchies: the Nazi Party, the civil service, industry, and Wehrmacht armed forces, but their cooperation is viewed as so complete that we may truly speak of diffusion into a machinery of destruction. 113. For Hilberg, the key stages in the destruction process were definition and registration of the Jews, expropriation of property, concentration into ghettos and camps, and, finally, annihilation. 114. Hilberg gives an estimate of 5.1 million as the total number of Jews murdered. He breaks this figure down into 3 categories: ghettoization and general privation, over 800,000, open-air shootings, over 1,300,000, extermination camps, up to 3,000,000. 115. With respect to the functionalism versus intentionalism debate about a master plan for the final solution or the lack thereof, Hilberg posits what has been described as a kind of structural determinism. 111. Hilberg argues that a destruction process has an inherent pattern and the sequence of steps in a destruction process is thus determined. If a bureaucracy is motivated to inflict maximum damage upon a group of people, it is inevitable that a bureaucracy, no matter how decentralized its apparatus or how unplanned its activities, should push its victims through these stages, culminating in their annihilation. 116. In his monograph, The Origins of the Final Solution, The Evolution of Nazi Jewish Policy, September 1939 March 1942, Christopher Browning argues that Nazi policy toward the Jews was radicalized twice in September 1939, when the invasion of Poland implied policies of mass expulsion and massive loss of Jewish lives, and in spring 1941, when preparation for Operation Barbarossa involved the planning of mass execution, mass expulsion, and starvation to dwarf what had happened in Jewish Poland. 117. Browning believes that the final solution as it is now understood, the systematic attempt to murder every last Jew within the German grasp, 5, took shape during a 5-week period, from the 18th of September to 25 October 1941. During this time, the sites of the first extermination camps were selected, different methods of murder were tested, Jewish emigration was forbidden, and 11 transports departed for Lodz as a temporary holding station. Of this period, Browning writes, the vision of the final solution had crystallized in the minds of the Nazi leadership, and was being turned into reality. 5. This was the peak of Nazi victories against the Soviet army on the Eastern Front, and, according to Browning, the stunning series of German victories led to both an expectation that the war would soon be won, and the planning of final destruction of the Jewish Bolshevik enemy. 118. Browning describes the creation of the extermination camps, which were responsible for the largest number of murders in the final solution, as bringing together 3 separate developments within Nazi Germany: the concentration camps, which had been established in Germany since 1933, an expansion of the gassing technology of the Nazi euthanasia program to provide a murder technique of greater efficiency and psychological detachment, and the creation of factories of death to be fed endless streams of victims by mass uprooting and deportation that utilized the experience and personnel from earlier population resettlement programs, especially the HSSPF and Adolf Eichmann's RSHA for Jewish affairs and evacuations. 119. Peter Longerk argues that the search for a finite date on which the Nazis embarked upon the extermination of the Jews is futile. In his book Holocaust, The Nazi Persecution and Murder of the Jews, 2011. Longerk writes, we should abandon the notion that it is historically meaningful to try to filter fuel of available historical material and pick out a single decision that led to the Holocaust. 120. 121. Timothy Snyder writes that Longerk grants the significance of Grez's murder of Jews by gas at Chelmo in December 1941, but also detects a significant moment of escalation in spring 1942, which includes the construction of the large death factory at Treblinka for the destruction of the Warsaw Jews and the addition of a gas chamber to the concentration camp at Auschwitz for the murder of the Jews of Silesia. 121. Longerk suggests that it was only in the summer of 1942 that mass killing was finally understood as the realization of the final solution, rather than as an extensively violent preliminary to summit a program of slave labor and deportation to the lands of the conquered USSR. For Longerk, to see mass murder as the final solution was an acknowledgement by the Nazi leadership that there would not be German military victory over the USSR in the near future. 121. David Cesarani emphasizes the improvised, haphazard nature of Nazi policies in response to changing wartime conditions in his overview, Final Solution: The Fate of the European Jews 1933-49, 2016. Cesarani provides telling examples, wrote Mark Roseman, of a lack of coherence and planning for the future in Jewish policy, even when we would most expect it. The classic instance is the invasion of Poland in 1939, when not even the most elementary consideration had been given to what should happen to Poland's Jews either in the shorter or longer term. Given that Poland was home to the largest Jewish population in the world, and that, in a couple of years, it would house the extermination camps, This is remarkable. 122. Whereas Browning places the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews in the context of the Wehrmacht victories in the Eastern Front, Cesaroni argues that the Germans' subsequent realization that there would be no swift victory over the Soviet Union scuppered the last territorial solution still on the table, expulsion to Siberia. 123. Germany's declaration of war on the United States on the 11th of December, 1941.